Dositheos Ananastopoulos says a prayer at his grandmother's grave. Every Thursday, he visits the graves of his ancestors at the Greek Orthodox Cemetery in Istanbul. The cemetery's size shows how large the Greek Orthodox community in Istanbul once was. But those days are long gone, says the priest.
When I come here, I think, my God, there are only 2,000 of us left. Sometimes I have the terrible feeling that in the end, only empty churches and graves will remain.
The remaining Greeks in Istanbul run into each other in the cemeteries more and more frequently. Most of them are old. Ananastopoulos returned to his hometown of Istanbul just 6 years ago, after living in Germany for 30 years. The headquarters of the Ecumenical Patriarchy. Ananastopoulos works here as a spokesman. A group of Orthodox travelers from the U.S. is visiting for an audience with Bartholomew I, the current Patriarch of Constantinople, as he still calls himself. Since the era of the Byzantine Empire, the Patriarch has been the spiritual leader of 300 million believers worldwide. But the Turkish government doesn't recognize the church leader. It wasn't always like that. Sultan Mehmet the Conqueror once personally handed over the city's founding decree to the Greek church dignitaries. 50 years ago, 100,000 Greeks lived on the Bosporus. Today, the city's Greek newspaper prints just 500 copies. The last remaining Greek pork butcher now trades from a small courtyard. The numerous Orthodox churches are far too big for the few remaining worshippers. For the past 4 years, Dositheos Ananastopoulos has been preaching in one of those churches. He found his vocation late in life, after retiring from his job at a German chemicals company. He became a spokesman for the Patriarch while studying for the priesthood.
On Saturdays and Sundays, I went to an old priest in the Church of the Holy Trinity in Taksim. I was like an apprentice there, at the age of 61. I spent 2 years learning how to deliver the Mass.
The island of Halki, or Haybeliada as the Turks call it, offers a great view of Istanbul. After returning from Germany, Ananastopoulos found the city changed. The population of 3 million had ballooned to 14 million.
I love the history of this city. It's very interesting. The childhood I spent in this city still influences me to this day. Look, I love Wiesbaden and the Taunus, but there's no sea there.
Once, most of the inhabitants here were Greek and referred to the island as Halki. But today the island has become a sensitive issue for both Greeks and Turks. High above on the island is the former Orthodox priests' seminary. 30 years ago it was forcibly closed. The EU has demanded its reopening. Even U.S. President Barack Obama spoke out in support of the theological seminary during an official visit to Turkey. In the hallways and classrooms, there's still an eerie silence, but international pressure is getting through. The Turkish government says it's ready to negotiate the seminary's reopening.
That means this school has an open, liberal Orthodox atmosphere that could well lead to the unification or fraternization between churches and bridge building between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Many Turkish people feel the same way. Most people on the island would be happy to see the seminary reopened.
We remember the times when the seminary was open. It was a big advantage for business people. There were a lot of visitors.
They're educated, pleasant people. I'm sure they'd attract tourists too.
Dositheos Ananastopoulos has a lot on his hands. The pensioner from the Taunus has taken it upon himself to preserve the legacy of his Greek ancestors in the city, while at the same time promoting reconciliation between Greeks and Turks.